Welcome to a guide of the macro engine. Firstly, you will need to activate your license. You can do that by clicking the button here, and inputting your license key. After you've activated your license, you'll be on the main screen like this. Now, firstly we'll look at loading macros. Click on the button called Load Macro. In here you can see all the available macros. Now click on the drop-down menu and choose the game you want macros for. For this tutorial I will be using CSGO. When you have found the game you want to use a macro in, you can download a specific macro for a weapon by clicking on the download button. When downloading a specific macro it will show an OK when it's ready like this. You can also choose to download all macros. You can do that by clicking on the download all button. To load a macro that you have downloaded, simply double-click on it. Now that you have a loaded macro, you need to choose the hotkey and the run key. You can do that by double-clicking on the boxes shown here. Here you can choose the hotkey to activate the macro. This can be any key on your keyboard. And here you can choose your run key. This is the key that you press to use the macro in-game. This can either be a mouse or a keyboard button. To choose either a mouse key, or a keyboard one, click on one of these buttons. You can also remove a loaded macro by clicking on the X here. I will now show you a little about how the multiplier works. We have a loaded macro and the multiplier is on its default 1.0. Our chosen macro is the 1.1 sensitivity AK for CSGO.
AK-47 full spray smooth. Macro deactivated.
If we now change our in-game sensitivity to 2.2 and the multiplier in the engine to 0.5, we should get the same result.
AK-47 full spray smooth. Macro deactivated.
Now on to changing profiles. Firstly, click on the Change Profile button on the right-hand side. In here you can click on the drop-down menu and choose a different profile. You have 5 profiles, every profile has 20 macro slots each. Now I'll tell you a little about what every button that I haven't already covered does. Firstly, we have Visit Website. This button will simply open our Legit Helpers main page. Second, we have Tutorial. This simply opens the page where you can find the tutorial for the macro engine, and for the macro editor. Third, we have Settings. This will open the Settings tab. I'll talk a little about the Settings tab later on in this video. Fourth, we have Close ME and Inject. This button will hide the macro engine menu and have the macros only work through your mouse and not the software. The macro engine will close but you will still be able to use the macros via your hotkeys. We recommend using this feature before you start playing. Please note that after closing ME and injecting you cannot change profiles, load new macros or change settings, until you start the software again. However, you can still use all macros you've previously loaded in the macro engine through your hotkeys. Fifth is the macro editor. In there you can make your own macros to use or share with the community. Exactly how it works will not be shown in this video. The macro editor will have its own tutorial, so if you want to know more please check that tutorial out. And finally, extend license. This is where you would want to put your license keys like the one you use to activate the software. Now we'll take a look at the Settings tab. Firstly, we have Disable Sound. This will disable sounds for the entire engine.
AK-47 full spray smooth. Macro deactivated.
Second, we have Invert Macros. This will invert the mouse movement so it works for people that use the inverted mouse settings for games.
AK-47 full spray smooth. Macro deactivated. AK-47 full spray smooth. Macro deactivated.
Third is repeat macros. This will simply start the macro over again instead of stopping. This setting is good for games with extended magazines.
AK-47 full spray smooth. Macro deactivated. AK-47 full spray smooth.
Fourth, we have performance mode. We recommend you only enable this if you have a lower-end PC, experience lag or other kind of gameplay-related issues when running the engine. Fifth is randomize macro values. This option will randomize the macro's recoil pattern slightly each time you shoot. It will make the macro less accurate but might look more legit.
AK-47 full spray smooth.
The next three settings are all security settings. We highly recommend leaving these on at all times. Now on to the bottom 4 binds. The first is a bind for pausing the engine. When the engine is paused, macros will not activate. It's like pausing a video. The next 2 here are for increasing or decreasing the macro multiplier. You can use these binds to change the macro sensitivity to match your own in-game sensitivity more easily. And lastly, the quit key. You can use this bind to fully quit and close the macro engine. Thank you for watching the Macro Engine Guide. Now get out there and start owning.